So I'm going to go quite quickly through quite a lot of slides, and they're mainly photographs, and they are telling the story of the restoration. So this is where I'm going to start. Abney Park saved. So it was on the at-risk register when the at-risk register was first created, and it came off, as it says here, on the 14th of November. And this is one of the historic England pictures. I'm going to take you in a time machine. This is what it looked like. A lithograph, 1840 to 1850. And if you lived through the restoration project, this was on the hoardings that were at the High Street end. So you go from that to this. And that's what I'm going to cover. I think you will all know this, but that's just another... If you are new to Hackney, and I don't think many people in this room are new to Hackney, that's what it looks like from the sky. And it's really important because it exists untouched soil in the middle of Hackney, despite all the other maps that you've seen. So what am I going to cover? This is quite an ambitious agenda, and I've already wasted time. Right, I'm going to give you an overview and timeline, a bit from the 60s and 70s. You can read that yourself, but I'll take you through a little of the stages that we went through. I've only been chair for 5 years. I will end with some final words and reflections, basically about why you should actually get involved in community projects. The potted history, if you want to know it, but this isn't the talk. It was an arboretum converted to a garden cemetery. It's 185 years old this year in May. 60,000 monuments, 200,000 burials, Grade 2 listed site, 12 monuments listed, the chapel is listed, it's a local nature reserve, it's a site of importance for nature conservation and the 5 million restoration, right? That is the potted history of Abney Park. And then many other... These are not the talks that you're getting tonight. The origins, the architectural history, the dissenters and abolitionists, Alan gives even better talks than us. Women of Abney, ecology of Abney, Abney Unearthed, and then there are flyers at the back for this, our new Radical Writers series. It's over a number of dates. Diane Abbott is going to launch her paperback in the chapel. We've got Ian Sinclair coming. Buy your tickets. So I'm not covering those things. This is the timeline. So if you're at the back, it might be a bit small, but I'm going to talk about this bit. So Abney House, and you saw the picture earlier, 1700. Cemetery opened in 1840. Save Abney Park Cemetery Association, 1979. Abney Park Trust, 1992. Serious plans, 2015. Restoration complete, 2024. And if you go to the next slide, I'll say a little bit. There was a debate about extending the lease. So the trust managed the park. We don't manage the park. Repeat, we don't manage the park. All the problems of the park are not us. We do the fun stuff. In 2015, though, the council took management back from the trust. There are good reasons why small organisations run by volunteers shouldn't run very, very complicated sites. Stabilization work in 2016. National Lottery Heritage Fund bid 2019. Planning consent very quick. I'll say something about that. I became chair about here 5 years ago, COVID. And I've lived through basically this period, restoration to park reopening. And that is what I will take you through. Right, pictures. So I started searching in our G Drive and I found this. It said pictures from 1966. You'll recognize that, right? If you're in the park. You can see still relatively well tended. This is from the same set of pictures. I don't know what their source is, dated 1966. I think you can start to see signs of wear and tear here. Start to see them. And then Paul Joyce's book. So Nick has got many copies of Paul Joyce's book. We've met someone here tonight who was a very close friend of Paul Joyce, who's sadly passed away. Lovely to meet you. This is from... his book in 94, second edition, talking about 1972. Vandalism, mercilessly attacked, sacrilegious raiding of the catacomb vaults, scattering of their grisly contents. And I can't do it for a family audience like this, but if you read this blog, The Elusive Satanists of Abney Park, then you get a sort of deeper dive. These links will work, but I'm not going there. But you get a sense, just even from that paragraph, of Abney unimaginable to how it is now. 1974, letters to the editor, Hackney Gazette, a sort of vision of the future. It's no good individually complaining at the lodge or to the gravedigger. You will get nowhere. Organise now and get the facts. And you could sort of almost translate that to our day-to-day interactions with Hackney Council. Next artefact. So the preface from the Joyce book. I've not met Nemini Lethbridge, but if you listen to Desert Island Discs every week, then you will have heard her 3 or 4 weeks ago. She didn't talk about Abney. She talked about being barrister to the Crays and a number of other exciting things in her life. But she wrote this preface in the book. And the book, I think, gets more interesting. People pick it up, it's a bit technical. It gets more interesting longer time goes on. But she talks about the trust being inaugurated 20th of May, 92, a 21-year lease, local nature reserve, as I said, 93, all built on the Save Abney Park Cemetery Association and Friends of Abney Park Trust. I should ask, was anyone a member of this? No. We're trying to track down people who have got a deeper story. And then this is a leap forward. Every slide has got a date. The lodge buildings were done up in 92. So as we were clearing up to move out, and this quote, so this is from the Building Design magazine, the quote is down at the bottom. You couldn't write this now in a respectable publication. The area around the lodge is full of tramps, deterring many people from entering the cemetery. The refurbishment begins to repopulate the vicinity, encouraging people to use their local assets. So this is at the time that the trust was first created, and we occupied, long before I was involved, occupied this space. So I'm going to fast forward now to 2009, and some of you will remember. So this lady, Sarah Figiel, turned up at one of our open days in the chapel a few weeks ago and said, I was doing some set design work. I was a student. I took some pictures in 2009. So they're just a selection. This is a bit where I go a bit quicker. Some of you will remember, right? Some of you know the park over decades, but others will only know it of the recent past. But this is how it was. And here, this is, I think, shortly after arson. So the stained glass, I looked up what these are called. So the lead frame is called a cane, melted away. So a set of pictures from Sarah. And then Gina Rackley, who some of you will know, who's written extensively about the ecology, the fungi. She has got a set of pictures which she sent me for this talk. And this is probably the standout one. You can see the chapel propped up, the roof completely, I think, burnt out, vegetation growing. If you've been to any of our events and sat in the mezzanine, that's the mezzanine. So that is how it was. And a few more from Gina. Really shows the state of disrepair. One from the outside. And a final one. This is 2014, so a historic England picture. This is what I remember. I've lived in Stoke Newington since 1998. I think it took me 15 years to dare to go in. But I remember this, it fenced. So this is all pre-work in that timeline slide. Just a bit about identity. So I hop around a little on timing here. This is taken, so the council consulted. Everyone says, no one asked me, but they did do a consultation. In 2017, they published this report and this headline, is it a park or a cemetery? And that is at the very core of Abney even now, I think. What is it? What does it mean? This quote, a challenge to find a solution that acknowledges these different uses. This is just a respondent to the consultation. And then Ian Sinclair. So this is a bit of a promotion for his talk. Ian Sinclair, the great urban writer and psychogeographer, Lights Out for the Territory, 1997. He talks about the knotweed has fiercely hacked back by community miscreants. That's me and Nick. And anyone else who's ever volunteered, and evident passion to reveal the past. And then, remember, 97, Abney Park has been demystified. It has lost its patina of obscurity. I think he might have a heart attack when he comes back on the 27th of March. Buy your tickets. A couple of us, so I mean, I've learned from Amir, you sort of just start poking around, you find a thing and another thing. This is my favourite bit, a trendy North London enclave. Here you are, look at you all. Protests triggered by Sainsbury's. Put your hand up if you protested against Sainsbury's. I mean, what a great unifying force. And you could read the quotes. It went on, look at this. Not the first time people have dressed up as animals to fight for Abney Park. So the ecology threatened. This was the planning permission. You can sort of look at the quotes. I'm trying to keep it safe for a family audience. This is the metro version. The mirror version is sort of just as colourful. Look at this. Stoke Newington, until recently, it's 2014, wanted to settle and raise their children. My children were born in 2011 and 2013. What have I subjected them to? And then the academics. Look, Professor Matthew Gandhi. Queer ecology, nature, sexuality, and heterotopic alliances. Does anyone know, any medics know what heterotopic mean? I looked it up, it means an abnormal place. It's about sort of where bones grow in the wrong place. And he talks about the park, essentially a creation of neglect. So all of these people, it's proper academic paper. So a bit more technical now. 2009, so this is interesting, taken from Hackney's own council papers. The first stage, they looked like they were going to give the trust an extended lease. So it was the trust that was going to lead the restoration, estimate of 1.8 million, and the lottery fund funding half of it. And I mean, I just sort of stumbled across that preparing for the talk. But then, and there may be, I mean, I don't know if there are trustees, ex-trustees in the room or anyone else was involved. Obviously, something went wrong, and I think it is that Hackney Council decided this site was too risky to leave in the hands of community miscreants. Bernard, the former chair, one before me, said, so the worst case scenario is they completely close the place, imagine. And then we're not this far away from here. The third is that they set it up in such a complicated way with different bodies in charge of different bits. So a first sort of disagreement. Fast forward a couple of years, obviously the lease and the management taken back, and the trust saying community assets that meet local needs. So a sort of acceptance, I think. And this is really where the work to restore the park accelerated. Formal council paper accepting the grant to stabilise. To do nothing is not an option given the serious threat the chapel poses to public safety. Without intervention, the chapel could collapse and be irretrievably lost. So this is only 2016. Same paper, official council paper, very bad condition, ruinous state, serious risk to public safety. And I'm labouring this because if you go in today, or you move to Stoke Newington as an aspirant couple, I think almost unimaginable, right? Picture from this is from a TripAdvisor. I found this in TripAdvisor, but the only picture I can find of the spire in scaffold. And if you go on our website, this company, iRevolution, I mean, this is, if you go on the website, it's all interactive. You can zoom in. And this is, I think the spire must have been done up. The roof is still being worked on. The scaffold is coming down, that perimeter fence. So this was the first bit of stabilising the building and making it weathertight. And then the story continues. 2017, the chapel quite quickly reopened. So not refitted, but reopened. A testament to our commitment. This is the mayor. Our commitment to Hackney's radical history, a sort of paragon of New Labour, right? It's a celebration of radical history. And then again, further money. This was grant to prepare the work. And Sheila, who was the chair between Bernard and me, celebrating that here with the mayor. And John Baldock, if anyone remembers John, who was the park manager. So I go back to the consultation here. So this sort of debate about its identity, I hope you don't spoil it by doing too much to it. I mean, just don't get involved in community politics. I am very worried. No one has got any way of talking in normal language without heightened emotion. I am very worried about these proposed improvements. I mean, you've got to remember what I just showed you, and they're very worried about improvement. It goes on. I mean, this is quite interesting. This comes up a lot. This is in the council decision to pursue this restoration. Any additional income is ring-fenced for a reinvestment in Abney Park. So if we want to form a movement, the movement is to ensure this thing happens. And I will come on to that at the end. Some of the vision by 2021, so by 21, we didn't get completed to 24, a vibrant events programme, facts and figures about that. But a serious piece of work. And then, I mean, I am skipping and racing through the history. January 2020, so just before COVID, just as I'd been a trustee for about 2 years, got the 4.4 million from the lottery fund, and that was announced. Going to leap forward and slightly into a different phase. So designs and planning, Kana elect the architects. These are just a couple of visuals from their, I mean, it's more than their original concept, but some of the original drawings. And Mike Kana, the architect, has done a brilliant talk for us. I mean, he could stand on this platform easily and fill an hour, but it's on our line, it's recorded. We did it sort of in COVID when everyone was locked at home. So the plan's starting to emerge. And quite quickly, so 2019, remember the funding approved in the January of 2020. So in 2019, November, the council approving the planning permission. The comprehensive report, if you're properly interested in, this is the report to read. It's got an archive of what are called gazetteers and supporting information, and they cover the archaeology, I mean, all these things listed here. What did people say? I mean, I think there was quite wide support, limited engagement, as you would expect. Concerns about privatising and commercialising the cemetery. I've been accused of that once already tonight with my expensive and excellent range of merchandise, as you can find at the back. Look, a cafe in a community building will detract from the charms. It should be free and unspoiled and not developed. So all the time, this debate about the identity. And then I'll just throw this in because people say, well, are there catacombs? There are catacombs. These are the two blueprints. This entrance is bricked up, so it's levelled. You can't go in. I've no idea what's in there. But maybe we have a project here to open it up either. We'll just go in one night, a couple of pickaxes, and find out. But again, I mean, I'm just sort of throwing you little tidbits about Abney, really. Pre-works, final shots. I'll go quickly through these. So I asked, this is how we run the trust, right? We just say, does anyone want to do something? This guy, Fred, said, I'd like to take some pictures. So he came on a midsummer's early evening, and these were the pictures. I mean, they are really beautiful photographs, right? And it's days before it was finally locked up. And I think if everyone had an ideal of Abney, they would actually keep it in this state. I mean, I can't get in contact with him anymore, but took really a set of beautiful pictures, which I think sort of reveal the specialness of the building, of the Hoskin Chapel. This is not an architecture talk. Beautifully framed, beautifully lit, inside and out, and days before it was locked up. So it's just a sort of capturing a moment in time that will never, ever be created or recreated. And as far as I know, no one else sort of bothered to do that. I'm going to go on to construction and disruption. So this will be more familiar memories. And there's a bit more the sort of social history and the experience of being involved. So we had to wrap everything up in our cupboards. I mean, we took the care to wrap in bubble wrap this piece of old grazing, and it's now in a container in Hackney Marshes. But part of the story, the diggers moved in. So this is days after those photographs. There was a big piece of work to stabilise the chapel before anything visible was done. Porter cabins, we were moved out of the lodge that the tramps used to hang around, scaring everyone, into this. This became our office. Obviously, you couldn't get into the park. There was a poor old Philip Glanville. There he is, cutting the ground, but he never got to open it. Me and a few others involved. Susan Fajana Thomas, Councillor Thomas. I mean, she's been involved and sort of championed this all the way through. Community heat pump. I mean, some of you remember this, right? You go in the park every day, some of you, and I'm just giving you pictures of the disruption. And I was quite surprised looking at this, how much, and like doing Upper House, you forget about all the disruption. This path laid for the construction traffic in the chapel, the rig, the scaffold rig. Amir and I went in with Nick. It was like a brilliant visit. We went in a couple of times, but the scaffold all the way up to the windows that I showed you earlier. And then whilst all of that was going on, this brilliant artist, Piotr Frack, so he's based in Bethnal Green, did the stained glass windows, and he worked with local school kids. Again, he's given us a note. It sits on our website. These are the concept drawings done by children, a stained glass window for each of the 4 seasons. So you had all this disruption whilst tucked away in classrooms, this sort of work going on. This is the mezzanine gallery, the original brickwork, where the presumably beams were in. Tree roots protected, so the ecology is very special. It's a disputed topic, but tree roots protected. This is the community room being built. All that ducting, remember the trenches from the entrance there was no electric, no gas, no heating, no digital, no water into the chapel. The whole paving and front end lifted. You all remember this, right? If you want to upset a community, close the entrance on Church Street. Brilliant. I mean, there are other things we've done to upset the community. The chapel on its way. That's our old notice board. I used to love that. Is the notice board that got me involved. You came into the high street, it had scrappy newspaper cuttings, and when it comes to restoration, it just gets chucked in a skip. The trenching, all this pottery, had we found something, turns out that's just what Victorians filled trenches with. And just a few more pictures. The correspondence about these, possibly from someone in the room. There were temporary scaffold bars. I mean, people were outraged. They were so angry about this scaffolding. This is a disgrace. Turned out that was just a temporary stairwell. Brilliant. Possibly the most rage-inducing feature of the park. I mean, a lot of us I live the other side, so I cut through it, right? But this side just changed every 2 weeks. It went from November to December, and I will defend local government, but there's lots of lessons about what you promise. And then finally we get towards the opening, and this is like someone showing you the sort of how they did up their kitchen, so I'm going to go on to how we use it. Open days, so we did a lot of engagement. That's just us talking to people. That was in the middle of the dog consultation. It wasn't my favourite day out, I must admit. Women of Abney. So the Women of Hackney book is at the back. Like, buy it and send it to a relative. It's brilliant. Women of Abney is the film which Nick made. I mean, it's a really beautiful tribute to a sort of hidden history, and we get to screen it in the chapel, so come along to one of our future screenings. We got into a massive row about licensing, and again, these heightened emotions. I mean, obviously I've picked the most brilliant quotes. I am appalled, and I'm not mocking it, because for some people it is a cemetery and a place of rest, but I'm appalled to hear what is being proposed. It's deeply offensive. I mean, it attracts emotions, and I've got a job and a family. I'm not trying to have a scrap with anyone. So the licensing of the park and how it's used was the latest incarnation of that debate. And then I do accept the Trust got the wrong side of the argument. The dog consultation, dogs in prison uniforms in Abney Park. I mean, it's brilliant. Anger not seen since Nando's nearly came. Well, Nando's did come But what it did reveal, I mean, I was naive about this, right? I did not expect this to be a row. I should also say I'm not a councillor and I didn't promote it. But we got the wrong side of the debate. But it's just like a fantastic celebration of the difference. And fair play to Louise, who's here, and the user group who have sort of re-energised the community participation in Abney Park. It's so important. A few pictures. I'm not doing a great sea of pictures of sort of the beauty of the restoration, but just a couple if you haven't been in, that compared to what I showed you right at the start, capture what has been done. One from the architects here. Very controversial, these outbuildings, but if you bother to look closely, they celebrate. I mean, there's sort of hidden meanings all over the place. The Arboretum and the roses of Abney. And then, Alan, that's you. The great historian, Alan, who gives talks. You know, this is the building I showed you earlier, now dedicated to private hire, but also community events. This is Ursula Graham, the great-great-granddaughter of Mrs. Graham. The Trust put that headstone, a great Victorian pioneer, feminist, balloonist, rebel, buried in a pauper's grave, unmarked. The Trust worked with a couple of funders to put a headstone in place. Ursula sadly passed away a couple of years later. We worked with the journalist Sharon Wright, who's also going to come and talk at our Radical Writers Talk. And this is her with her extended family, marking that unveiling of the headstone. This is on the opening, Tower Theatre actress dressed up as Mrs. Graham, her silk balloon draped behind, breathing the life, telling the stories. Fundamentally, that is what we do. Not every man in the bush in Abney Park is up to no good. Although, take great care. This is John volunteering. We sweep the memorial as volunteer-led. There are great things to get involved with. And then through the Lottery Fund, a whole set of community activities bringing new people. I think it's fair to say this audience is not representative of the Hackney population at large. And there's a really serious bit about bringing diverse communities into Abney and explaining the history. And Steph, who has worked for us for the last 18 months, has done an amazing job here, partnering with the Ishan Community Centre on Cazenove Road. We do loads with local groups. This is commemorating the 200th anniversary. There's always a 200th anniversary of something, a death, a birth, some other event. But James Braidwood, the funder of the London Fire Brigade, next year we're currently talking to the Guild of Firemen about having his listed memorial refurbished. And then there's a self-aggrandizing picture, but the grand reopening. If anyone knows this man, we have no idea who he is, right? For the record, that's me, that's the mayor, and then there's a man. Like, if you know this man, we want to know who he is. And then that would be the happy ending. The sad ending is we get £22,000, or we have done, which is a sort of enough core funding to do other things, but the council is about to cut it, possibly altogether. So we do need your help. So thank you, Amir, for fundraising. Steph, who's been working for us, is standing down anyway, so we have a little bit of headroom, but it's really choppy to keep all of that community activity. And I don't lay claim to managing the park or doing the restoration, right? That was funded by many other people, but we do all the other stuff around the edges. So if you can support us or want to get involved, please do. And then I promise I'm coming to the end. I tried to what does this mean? So I'm going to rattle through these. Abney is a remarkable place. I've tried to give you the briefest sense of it, and we're very, very lucky to have it, live in the middle of London and have a sort of woodland on our doorstep. I've tried to show that restoration takes years and years and years. I sort of got the glory bit at the end, or those of us involved. I've tried to show you that the same debates just repeat through again and again and again. Completely different actors, completely different people, the same tensions. I've tried to highlight why I think diverse, and I really mean diverse community voice, is essential, and that spaces are really contested. And I've learned that the hard way, right? They mean so many different things to people. It's also true, my favourite thing walking around one Sunday afternoon is a man explaining to his children that they had to move the graves out the way to lay the paths. I mean, so if the Trust has got anything to do, it's just to keep telling the story of what is this place. The paths were laid and the graves were... the graves came after the paths, put it that way. There are 1,000 good ideas for brilliant community events, so it's only the means to do them that sort of hold us back. And I would say if you're sort of all teetering, don't become a school governor. Hard work, boring. get involved in a community group with a place. It's made me better at my day job. I mean, God, I have no doubt my teams impose misery on community groups in Essex all day long by setting them conditions, but I've really learned like the bottom way up, and I have made great friends along the way. So I take from the original letter I showed you, organise now, get the facts. That's our website. Donate, volunteer, support, collaborate. Thank you.